괜찮아요. 안심해서. Okay, don't worry.
The train car smelled like rain and metal. Bodies pressed against bodies, everyone staring at their phones or the floor or anywhere, but at the old woman sobbing in the middle of the aisle. She wasn't loud about it. That's what made it worse. Madame Sio stood there, one hand gripping the overhead rail, the other clutching a leather purse, so tight her knuckles had gone white. Tears ran down her face in steady streams. Her lips moved, forming words no one wanted to hear. Amudo. Amudo nalboji anha. No one sees me. The commuter shifted. A teenage girl turned her music up. A businessman adjusted his tie and looked at the ceiling. An elderly man pretended to read his newspaper even though it was upside down. This is Seoul. You don't make eye contact. You don't get involved. You especially don't touch strangers on public transit. But then someone did. Welcome to First Epic Tales by Liam. Please like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Zara Williams stood up from her seat near the back. She was tall, maybe 5'9", with box braids tied up in a bun and a nurse's ID badge clipped to her jacket. Her sneakers were the fake Nikes from the market in Itaewon, the ones with the swoosh slightly crooked. She walked through the frozen crowd like she didn't see them staring. And they were staring. Hard. A black woman, moving toward the crying Korean Ajuma, in the middle of rush hour. Zara stopped in front of Madame Seo and spoke softly in Korean. 괜찮아요. 제가 있어요. It's okay. I'm here. Madame Seo's head snapped up. Her red-rimmed eyes locked on Zara's face, and for a second, she looked more shocked than sad. Zara didn't wait for permission. She reached out and took the woman's hand. The train car collectively held its breath. Then Madame Seo collapsed forward into Zara's arms, sobbing harder now, but quieter somehow, like she'd been holding it in for years and finally had somewhere to put it. Zara wrapped her arms around the older woman and held her. Just held her. She didn't say anything else. Didn't try to fix it. Just stood there while the train rocked and swayed and everyone pretended not to watch. That's when Zara noticed him. Standing near the door, arms crossed, was a man in his late 30s. Black dress shirt, dark jeans, ink crawling up his neck and disappearing under his collar. His face was blank, but his eyes weren't. He was staring directly at her, not angry, not grateful, just watching. The train slowed. Doors opened at Gangnam Station. Madame Seo pulled back, wiping her face with shaking hands. She whispered something Zara didn't catch, then the tattooed man stepped forward and gently guided her toward the exit. Before they left, Madame Seo turned back. She reached into her purse and pressed something into Zara's hand. A silk scarf, deep blue, with gold stitching along the edges. 인연은 빚이 되기도 해요. A connection can become a debt. Then she was gone. The doors closed. The train lurched forward, and Zara stood there, holding a stranger's scarf, wondering what the hell just happened. She sat back down. Someone immediately took the seat next to her, like the moment had already been erased. Zara looked at the scarf. It was beautiful, expensive, the kind of thing you don't just give away. She folded it carefully and tucked it into her bag. That was just kindness, she told herself, nothing more. 3 days later, Zara was back to normal. Her shift at the care facility ended at 6. She picked up her son Caleb from Hagwon, the after-school academy where he learned math way above his grade level, because that's what you did in Korea if you wanted your kid to keep up. They took the bus home. She microwaved leftover jigae. He did his homework at the kitchen table while she folded laundry and half-watched a drama on her phone. This was her life. Ordinary, quiet, safe. She pulled the blue scarf out of her bag and draped it over the back of a chair. It looked out of place in her tiny studio apartment, but she liked it. It reminded her that sometimes people just needed someone to see them. She didn't think about the man with the tattoos. She didn't think about the way he'd looked at her. She should have. 2 days after that, Zara noticed the car. Black sedan, tinted windows, parked across the street from the care facility when she left work. She walked past it, kept her head down, got on the bus. The next day, it was there again. This time, someone got out. A younger guy in a suit. He didn't approach her, just watched her walk by. Zara felt her stomach tighten. On the 3rd day, she took a different route home, walked an extra 15 minutes just to avoid the main road. The car wasn't there. But when she turned the corner onto her street, she saw him, the tattooed man from the train. He was standing outside a cafe, holding 2 cups of coffee. When he saw her, he didn't smile, just nodded toward an empty table on the patio. Zara stopped walking. Her first instinct was to run. Her second was to call someone. Her third was to wonder who the hell she'd even call. He waited. Finally, she walked over. He set one of the coffees in front of the empty chair and sat down. Zara stayed standing. "My name is Jin Tae-ho," he said in English. His accent was thick but clear. "You helped my mother." Zara said nothing. "I want to thank you." "You don't need to." "I do." Silence. Zara sat down. Not because she wanted to, because her legs felt too heavy to keep standing. Tae-ho studied her for a moment, then continued. "My mother, she hasn't been well. What you did meant something." I just held her hand. In Korea, that is not a small thing. Zara picked up the coffee, took a sip. It was perfect. Exactly how she liked it. That should have been comforting. It wasn't. "How did you know where I work?" Tae-ho didn't answer. Zara set the cup down. "Look, I'm glad your mom's okay. But I don't need anything. I don't want anything. It was just what anyone would do." "Not anyone." "Well, I did. And now it's over." She stood up. Tae-ho remained seated, but his voice followed her. "세상은 그렇게 간단하지 않습니다." The world isn't that simple. Zara didn't look back, but she felt it. The weight of something she didn't understand yet, something that had already started. That night, Zara couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the conversation. The way Tae-ho had known her coffee order. The way he'd said the world isn't simple. Like it was a warning instead of an observation. She got up around 2 a.m. and checked the locks on her door. Twice. Caleb was asleep in the corner of their studio, his math textbook still open beside him. She watched his chest rise and fall, steady and safe. She told herself she was being paranoid, but paranoia kept people alive. The next week passed without incident. No black sedans, no men in suits, no Tae-ho appearing outside her work. Zara started to relax. Maybe he'd listened. Maybe he understood that she didn't want to be part of whatever his life was. She worked her shifts, picked up Caleb, made dinner, helped with homework. Normal. Then she got the flowers. They were waiting outside her apartment door when she came home from work. White chrysanthemums arranged in a black lacquer vase. No card. Zara stared at them. In Korea, white chrysanthemums meant one thing: death, mourning, funerals. She left them in the hallway and locked the door behind her. 2 days later, a man approached her at the bus stop. Not Tae-ho, someone else. Older, maybe 50s, with silver hair slicked back and a long wool coat that probably cost more than Zara made in 3 months. He stood too close. "You're the woman from the train," he said in Korean. Not a question. Zara didn't respond. "You know who Jin Tae-ho is?" "I don't know anything." The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "That's unfortunate, because now others know who you are." Zara's bus pulled up. She got on without looking back. But she felt his gaze through the window, and she knew. Saying no hadn't protected her. It had exposed her. She tried calling Tae-ho. She didn't have his number, but she went back to the cafe where they'd met, asked the staff if they'd seen him. They looked at her like she was crazy. She walked through Gangnam at night, looking for the black sedan, for anyone who seemed like they might know where he was. Nothing. That's when she realized something worse than being followed, being cut off. She'd refused his protection. Now she was alone, and someone else had noticed. The breaking point came on a Thursday. Zara was walking Caleb home from Hagwon when a car pulled up beside them. Not the black sedan. A white SUV with dark windows. The back door opened. A woman stepped out. Younger than Zara, early 20s maybe, wearing designer everything. She spoke in rapid Korean. "Jin Tae-ho's mother wishes to see you." "I'm with my son." "We know." Zara's blood went cold. The woman glanced at Caleb, then back at Zara. "Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, Apgujeong. Someone will come for you." She got back in the SUV. It drove away. Caleb tugged on Zara's sleeve. "Yuma? Who was that?" "Mom, who was that?" Zara forced a smile. "Nobody, baby. Let's go home." But her hands were shaking. That night, Zara made a decision. She packed a bag. Just the essentials. Clothes for her and Caleb, passports, the money she'd been saving in an envelope under the mattress. She wasn't going to that meeting. She was leaving Seoul, maybe Busan, maybe further. She'd figure it out once they were on the train. She wrote a note on the back of a receipt and left it on the kitchen counter, weighted down by the blue silk scarf. "I'm sorry, I can't do this. Please leave us alone." She woke Caleb at 4 a.m, told him they were going on an adventure. He was too sleepy to argue. They made it to Seoul Station just as the sun was coming up. Zara bought 2 tickets to Busan. The train left in 30 minutes. They sat in the waiting area. Caleb leaned against her shoulder, half asleep. Zara watched the crowd, looking for anyone who didn't belong. 20 minutes, 15, 10. Then she saw them. 2 men in dark jackets, scanning the crowd, methodically. One of them pulled out his phone, looked at the screen, then looked directly at her. Zara stood up. "Caleb, come on." "But the train, now." She grabbed his hand and walked quickly toward the bathrooms. Maybe they could slip out through a side exit. Maybe they could. A hand caught her arm. Not rough, but firm. She turned. The woman from yesterday. The one in designer clothes. "You were told 2 o'clock, she said quietly. "Not 4 in the morning. Let go of me. We're not here to hurt you." "Then let us leave." The woman's expression didn't change. "You don't understand the situation you're in." "I understand perfectly. I helped an old woman on a train, and now your boss thinks he owns me." "He doesn't think he owns you. He thinks you're in danger, and you are." Zara pulled her arm free. "From who? Him?" "From the people who saw what you did. The people who think you matter to him." "I don't. They don't know that." Zara looked at Caleb. He was scared now, wide awake, holding on to her jacket. The woman followed her gaze. "There's a car outside, black sedan. You get in, we take you somewhere safe until this is handled. Or you get on that train, and by the time you reach Busan, someone else will be waiting." "You're lying." "Test it if you want." Zara's throat tightened. She looked at the departure board. The Busan train was boarding. She looked at the exit. Daylight, freedom, maybe. She looked at her son, and she got in the car. The car didn't take them to Apgujeong. It drove south, away from the city center, into neighborhoods Zara didn't recognize. Industrial buildings gave way to walled estates. Trees lined the streets. Everything looked expensive and empty. Caleb pressed his face against the window. "Where are we going?" Zara didn't answer because she didn't know. The woman in the front passenger seat typed on her phone. The driver said nothing. Classical music played softly through the speakers. 20 minutes later, they stopped in front of a traditional Hanok house. High wooden walls, curved tile roof, a garden visible through the open gate. "Out," the woman said. Zara hesitated. "Your son stays in the car." "Absolutely not." The woman turned around. Her face was still blank, but her voice softened slightly. "He'll be safe, I promise. But this conversation is not for children." Zara looked at Caleb. He was trying to be brave, but his hand was gripping hers so tight it hurt. She leaned down and whispered in his ear, "I'll be right back. 5 minutes. You count to 300, okay?" "Mom, count slow. I'll be back before you finish." She kissed his forehead and got out of the car. The woman led her through the gate into a courtyard. Smooth stone paths, a small koi pond. Everything silent except for the sound of water trickling from a bamboo fountain. They entered the main house. Inside, it smelled like green tea and old wood. And there, sitting on a low cushion near the window, was Madame Seo. She looked better than she had on the train. Her hair was neatly pinned. She wore a pale blue hanbok, but her eyes were still sad. She gestured to the cushion across from her. Zara sat. The woman who'd brought her bowed slightly and left the room, closing the door behind her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Madame Seo poured tea into 2 small cups. She pushed one toward Zara. "You tried to run," she said in Korean. "I tried to go home." "This is not your home." Zara didn't answer. Madame Seo sipped her tea. "My son told me you refused his help." "I don't need help." "You have a child." Zara's jaw tightened. "Don't." "I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you the truth. You showed me kindness when no one else would. That kindness created a debt. In my world, debts must be repaid." "I don't want repayment." "It doesn't matter what you want. Others saw you. They know you touched me. They know Tae-ho spoke to you. Now they think you're leverage." "I'm nobody." "You were. You're not anymore." Zara set her cup down too hard. Tea sloshed over the rim. "So what? I'm just stuck? I help one person, and now I'm trapped in some gangster bullshit I didn't ask for?" Madame Seo didn't flinch. "Yes." The simplicity of it was worse than any threat. Zara stood up. "I'm leaving. I'm taking my son, and I'm leaving Korea, tonight. You won't make it to the airport. Watch me. Min Kwan will stop you." Zara froze. "Who?" Madame Seo's face darkened. "My husband's brother, Tae-ho's uncle. He runs the east side. He's been looking for a way to weaken my son for years. You gave him one." "I didn't give him anything." You gave him a reason to act. Madame Seo stood slowly, her hanbok rustling. Min Quan believes power is taken, not earned. He sees you as a tool, and tools get used until they break. Zara felt her knees go weak. She sat back down. What does he want? To prove Taeho is soft. To show that my son's protection is meaningless. If you die, Taeho looks weak. If you live under Min Quan's terms, Taeho loses face. Either way, we lose. So let me go. Tell everyone I mean nothing. They won't believe it now. Zara put her head in her hands. This is insane. This is the world you stepped into. I was just being kind. Madame Seo's voice softened. I know. When Zara got back to the car, Caleb was on 247. She pulled him into her arms and held him tight. The woman got back in the front seat. We're taking you somewhere safe, a hotel. Taeho will meet you there tonight. And then what? Then he'll handle it. How? The woman didn't answer. The hotel was in Gangnam, top-floor suite, 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River. Caleb explored the rooms like it was Disneyland. Zara stood by the window and stared at the city below. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number, she answered. It's me, Taeho said. Where are you? Dealing with it. Your mother said. I know what she said. She's right, but I'm going to fix this. How? Silence on the other end. Then, by giving Min Quan what he wants. What does that mean? It means you stay in that room until I call you. Don't leave. Don't open the door for anyone except me. Taeho. This isn't your fault, but I'm going to end it. He hung up. Zara stood there with the phone against her ear, listening to dead air. Caleb called from the other room. Mom, they have a whole fridge full of snacks. She forced herself to smile, forced herself to walk into the bedroom and sit on the bed and pretend everything was fine. But outside, the sun was setting, and somewhere in the city, men were making decisions about her life. Decisions she had no control over. She thought about the train, about Madame Seo's tears, about the moment she'd decided to step forward instead of looking away. If she could go back, would she do it again? She didn't know anymore. 3 hours later, someone knocked on the door. Zara looked through the peephole. Not Taeho, the silver-haired man from the bus stop. He smiled at the camera. Open the door, Miss Williams. We need to talk about your son's future. Zara's heart stopped. She turned around. Caleb was gone. The balcony door was open, and standing outside on the ledge, barely visible in the dark, was another man, holding Caleb by the wrist. Zara's vision tunneled. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just stared at her son's face through the glass, his eyes wide with confusion and terror. The man holding Caleb wasn't rough about it. That made it worse somehow. Casual, like he was helping a kid cross the street. The silver-haired man knocked again. We're losing patience. Zara opened the door. He walked in like he owned the place. 2 more men followed. They checked the rooms methodically, opened closets, looked under beds. One of them unplugged her phone and pocketed it. The silver-haired man sat down on the couch, crossed his legs, waited. Zara stood frozen near the balcony door, watching the man outside adjust his grip on Caleb's arm. They were 15 floors up. The wind was strong enough to make Caleb's hair move. My name is Min Quan, the silver-haired man said. I believe my sister-in-law mentioned me. Let my son go. In a moment. First, we talk. There's nothing to talk about. I disagree, Min said. Quan gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. Zara didn't move. One of his men stepped toward the balcony door. She sat. Min Quan smiled. Better, now. You helped an old woman on a train. Very noble, very foolish. Do you understand why? Zara said nothing. Because in helping her, you created an obligation, and obligations in our world are power. My nephew Taeho now feels responsible for you. That weakness makes him vulnerable. That vulnerability makes him useless. I told him I didn't want his help. But you accepted it anyway. You got in the car this morning. You came to the house. You're here, in this hotel, under his protection. So your words mean very little. Zara's hands curled into fists. What do you want? For Taeho to understand his place. He's too soft, too influenced by his mother's sentimentality. He thinks power comes from mercy. Min Quan leaned forward. It doesn't. It comes from knowing when to let things break. The man on the balcony shifted. Caleb closer to the railing. Zara shot to her feet. Stop. Sit down, she sat. Min Quan checked his watch. Tae-ho should be here soon. He's been calling your phone. When you didn't answer, he got worried. Predictable. When he arrives, you'll see what real power looks like. Tae-ho arrived 10 minutes later. He didn't knock. The door just opened. He stood in the doorway, alone, his shirt untucked and his face carefully blank. But Zara saw his eyes flick to the balcony, saw the muscle in his jaw jump. Samcon, uncle. Min Quan stood. You came fast. Let them go. Eventually. Now. Min Quan laughed, soft and cold. Or what? You'll fight me? Here? In front of the woman and her child? That's not very heroic, Tae-ho. Tae-ho stepped inside. The door closed behind him. What do you want? I want you to stop pretending you're something you're not. You're not a protector. You're not a leader. You're a man who lets sentiment cloud judgment. Min Quan walked to the window. Your mother cries on a train, and you think that's weakness. I think it's clarity. She sees the world as it is. You see it as you wish it were. You made your point. Not yet. Min Quan turned back. The woman and her son leave this room safely, but only if you acknowledge the truth. What truth? That you were wrong? That protecting her was a mistake? That sentiment has no place in our world? Min Quan's voice dropped. Kneel and say it. Admit you were wrong, then they walk out. The room went silent. Zara felt her stomach turn over. Tae-ho didn't move. You want me to kneel? In front of her, in front of my men, in front of everyone who thinks you're strong enough to lead. Min Quan smiled. Prove you're not. And if I refuse? Min Quan glanced toward the balcony. Caleb whimpered. The sound was so small it barely carried through the glass. Zara stood up again. Don't. Sit, Min Quan said without looking at her. Tae-ho held up a hand. She stays, standing. She's not part of this. She's the entire reason for this. No, I am. Tae-ho's voice was quiet, steady. You want me to kneel? Fine, but you let the kid come inside first. That's not how this works. It is now. The two men stared at each other. Finally, Min Quan gestured. The man on the balcony pulled Caleb back inside. The boy ran to Zara, and she wrapped her arms around him, pulling him behind her. Tae-ho watched them for a second. Then he looked at Min Quan. Say what you need me to say. Kneel first. Tae-ho's jaw worked. Then slowly he lowered himself to one knee. Not both, just one. Min Quan's face hardened. Both. Tae-ho stared at him. Then his other knee touched the floor. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Min Quan walked closer, stood over him. Now, tell her you were wrong. Tae-ho's hands were flat on his thighs. His head was slightly bowed, but his voice was clear. I was wrong. Why? Because I put sentiment over strategy. And what does that make you? Silence. Say it. Weak, Min Quan smiled. Louder. Weak. Zara felt tears burn her eyes. She wanted to scream, wanted to tell him to stop, but Caleb was shaking in her arms, and she couldn't move. Min Quan circled Tae-ho slowly. You see, this is power, not protection, not mercy, the willingness to humiliate yourself to save someone you barely know. He crouched down, face to face with Tae-ho. You've proven my point beautifully. Tae-ho said nothing. Min Quan stood, brushed off his coat. You're free to go, Miss Williams. Take your son. Leave Korea if you're smart. Forget this happened. He walked toward the door. His men followed. At the threshold, he stopped. Tae-ho, stay down until we're gone, just to make sure the lesson sticks. Then they left. The door clicked shut. Tae-ho stayed on his knees. Zara couldn't move, couldn't speak. Caleb buried his face in her stomach, and in the silence, Tae-ho finally stood. He didn't look at her, just walked to the window and stared out at the city below. Zara waited 5 minutes before she spoke. You didn't have to do that. Tae-ho's reflection in the window didn't move. Yes, I did. He humiliated you. He let you leave. Caleb was still pressed against her, his breathing uneven. Zara ran her hand over his hair, trying to calm him, trying to calm herself. What happens now? She asked. Tae-ho finally turned around. His face looked older somehow, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. Now you go, tonight. I'll have someone take you to Inchin. There's a flight to Los Angeles at midnight. And you? I'll deal with my uncle. How? He didn't answer. Zara felt something crack open in her chest. This is because I helped your mother. This is because my uncle wanted an excuse. You were just convenient. That's not better. It's the truth. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't expected. Not anger, not shame, just exhaustion. The kind that came from carrying weight for too long. I'm sorry, she said quietly, as he don't be. I should have just walked past her. On the train, I should have. If you had, I'd still be dealing with Min Kwan. Just differently, and my mother would still be alone. His voice softened slightly. What you did mattered, even if it cost something. Caleb pulled away from Zara and looked up at Taeho. Are you a bad guy? Taeho crouched down so they were eye level. Sometimes. But you saved us. I put you in danger first. That's not what Mom said. She said you tried to help and your uncle's a… Caleb glanced at Zara. A bad word. Taeho almost smiled. Almost. Your mom's right. He stood and handed Zara a business card. Plain white. Just a phone number. Call when you land. Let me know you're safe. Why would you care? Because kindness deserves protection, even when it's inconvenient. They left an hour later, a different car, a different driver. Caleb fell asleep in the back seat before they even reached the highway. Zara stared out the window at Seoul passing by, neon signs, crowded streets, a city that had never quite felt like home but had started to, somehow, until tonight. She thought about the scarf Madame Seo had given her, still sitting on her kitchen counter in the apartment she'd never see again. She thought about Taeho on his knees. She thought about the choice she'd made on the train, the one that had started all of this. Would she do it again? She still didn't know. 6 months later, Zara was back in Oakland. She worked at a care facility near Lake Merritt. Caleb was in 5th grade, thriving, making friends who spoke English and didn't have to worry about hagwons or keeping up with impossible standards. Life was normal again. Quiet. Safe. But sometimes, late at night, she'd pull up the news on her phone and search for stories about Seoul, about organized crime, about power shifts in the underworld. She never found anything concrete, just whispers, rumors. One article mentioned a leadership change, a younger generation taking control, more restrained, more strategic. She wondered. One afternoon, she got a package. No return address, just her name written in careful Hangul. Inside was the blue silk scarf, cleaned, pressed, folded perfectly, and underneath it, a single note in English. Thank you for seeing me. MS. Zara held the scarf for a long time. Then she folded it back up and put it in her dresser drawer. 3 weeks after that, Zara was on BART coming home from work. The train was packed, rush hour, everyone staring at their phones or the floor or anywhere but at each other. That's when she saw him, an older man, maybe 70, Korean, sitting near the doors with his head in his hands, shoulders shaking. People shifted away, avoided eye contact, turned up their music. Zara felt her chest tighten. She knew this moment, knew exactly what it cost. For a few seconds, she didn't move. Then Caleb, sitting next to her, tugged on her sleeve. Mom, that man's crying. She looked at her son, saw his wide brown eyes, his concern, and she thought about Taeho's words. Kindness deserves protection, even when it's inconvenient. Zara stood up. She walked through the crowded train car and sat down next to the old man. He looked up, startled, tears streaking his face. She didn't speak Korean this time, didn't need to. She just put her hand on his shoulder. Hey, she said softly. It's okay. I'm here. The man stared at her. Then his face crumpled, and he leaned into her, sobbing harder but somehow quieter, like he'd been waiting for permission to break. Zara held him. The train rocked and swayed, people watched but didn't intervene, and in that moment, Zara understood something she hadn't before. Kindness always cost something. It created connections, obligations, debts, but the cost of not being kind was higher. It was living in a world where people cried, alone on trains because everyone was too afraid to reach out. She'd paid a price in Seoul, a big one, but she'd also learned something about who she was, about who she wanted to be. When the old man finally pulled away, he whispered thank you in broken English. Zara nodded. You're welcome. The train pulled into her stop. She stood, took Caleb's hand, and walked toward the doors. Before stepping off, she glanced back at the old man, He was wiping his face, sitting up straighter, looking less alone, and Zara smiled. Not because it was easy, because it mattered. The doors closed behind her. She walked up the station steps into the Oakland sunlight, holding her son's hand. Behind her, the train disappeared into the tunnel. Ahead of her, the city stretched out wide and complicated and full of people who needed someone to see them. She'd keep looking, even when it cost her, especially then, because that's what kindness was. Not a transaction, a choice. And she'd made hers. If you were in Zara's position, would you have helped that stranger on the train, knowing what it might cost? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.